So the Lord of the Rings Conquest. I have a lot of fond memories of this game. The hype before the game launch, wondering what it would be like to be a frontline soldier at the Battle of Helm's Deep or the defense of Minas Tirith. And the heartbreak when none of my local game shops had a copy on launch day and I had to resort to good old Walmart.com to deliver it via Pony Express. That was a long week as I waited for the delivery, and I hyped myself further with thoughts of playing as an orc or an Uruk-hai, laying waste to the Shire and bitch-slapping hobbits and such. So I just endlessly replayed the downloadable demo. And heartbreak again when I realized the day my copy would arrive at the post office just happened to land on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Now, I'm not a racist, but for one day in 2009, I wasn't very happy with Martin Luther King Jr. But the day after, I got my game and proceeded to have a blast. So in this video, guys, we're going to be talking about the Lord of the Rings Conquest and how I feel it's worth your time and worth going out and fighting a copy even today, all these years later, because I've been having a blast playing this game, and I hope you guys enjoy this video as much as I've enjoyed making it for you guys. And if you find yourself liking the video, be sure to drop a like on the video and maybe even consider subscribing. It means a lot. But guys, let's dive into the video. So, what is the Lord of the Rings Conquest? Well, if you're familiar with the classic Star Wars Battlefront games, which were made by Pandemic Studios, Lord of the Rings Conquest was also made by Pandemic Studios, and was supposed to be a Star Wars Battlefront game, but with a Lord of the Rings skin. Playing as a frontline soldier throughout all the major battles of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but where once there were blasters, now are swords and bows, and instead of tanks, you have horses and trolls. And like many others, my first taste of the Lord of the Rings Conquest was actually with the demo that I replayed endlessly before launch. The demo itself takes place during the Battle of the Last Alliance and serves as a tutorial to teach you the basics of the game's gameplay. I must have killed Sauron 100 times before I actually got my hands on a full copy of the game. This is also when we got our first sample of the in-game announcer who loves to yell orders in your ear.
Hurry to the ridge! Our allies wait
Jesus
there!
Christ. But when I finally got my hands on a full copy of the game, and in classic Battlefront fashion, I jumped straight into instant action. And just like Star Wars Battlefront, your soldiers that you're playing as fall into one of 4 classes. Beginning with the Warrior class, which serves as your standard sword-wielding brawler, the Warrior does have cool magic abilities which allow him to ignite his sword in flames. One of which sees him spinning around like a flaming tornado. Look at him go. It's also worth mentioning that all the heroes in the game also fall into one of these 4 classes. For example, Aragorn basically serves as a souped-up warrior, though his magical abilities don't make a ton of thematic sense. Like, I don't really remember him throwing the army of the dead at the Uruk-hai at Helm's Deep, but it's still pretty cool. Next is the Archer class, which serves as your standard ranged unit, shooting arrows into the enemies, but with special abilities like being able to shoot multiple arrows at the same time, or even poison arrows which stun and slow enemies, but if you want to do a lot of damage, explosive arrows that send enemies flying.
Defend the courtyard!
But my favorite part is if enemies get too close, you have the awesome Spartan kick, which is hilarious 100% of the time. And up next we have the Stealthy Rogue class, which can engage in melee with his cool looking spinning knives, but does have the single most OP move in the entire game, which is the backstab.
With scout invisibility!
Using his invisibility to sneak up behind an enemy to take him out with a single blow. And it doesn't just have to be soldiers. You thought your battle with Saruman was going to be an epic wizard battle in his tower? Nope. And oh no, it's the Dark Lord himself. This is going to be an epic battle. Nope. And I know it would be easy to argue that the backstab ability kind of breaks the game's gameplay, but I also think that the game's quirkiness is where a lot of the fun comes from. And finally, we have the Mage class, which is my personal favorite class to play in the game with his cool ranged lightning attack. The Mage also has more special abilities than the other class, like instead of being able to block, he puts up a force field which stops arrows and other ranged attacks. He can also shoot a fireball, which creates a wall of fire which serves as area denial for enemy troops. And he can also heal wounded allies.
Look! He has restored our allies with his heal power!
Which in turn makes the Mage class heroes my favorite to play as, though I do challenge you to find where in the movies Gandalf is going around yelling his name.
I am Gandalf!
But when it comes to instant action, one thing that's always really bothered me is that the scale is pretty small. For example, the Battle of Helm's Deep is really just a dozen Uruk-hai attacking a dozen defenders. But one thing I've always thought that would make instant action instantly better is if they gave you the option to toggle on and off the grunts from the single player campaign. The grunts serve as easily defeatable cannon fodder which fight alongside the other 4 main classes for the sake of adding scale to these battles with their huge numbers. And not being able to add them to the battles in instant action make the instant action battles feel small when compared to the same battles in the single player campaign. And speaking of the grunts, one thing that would make this game instantly visually better is if they gave more variety to the grunts that are on the battlefield. For example, how much better would this battle look if all these grunts didn't look exactly the same? Small details like a dozen helmets which are randomly applied to the grunts would go a long way in making this feel like a rabble of orcs that we'd see in the movies. I mean, the Urkai are some of the coolest looking enemies in film history, though whenever we're fighting them in the game, the majority of them look like this. I mean, the Urkai warrior classes look great, but we spend most of the time fighting the grunts, so they should have at least made the Urkai grunts look like the scout Urkai from the Battle of Amon Hen. I mean, that would be instantly better, right? Because at the end of the day, we spend most of our time fighting the grunts in the single player campaign, so I felt like they should have put a little bit more work into their design.
They swarm up the ladders!
But the campaigns of the Lord of the Rings Conquest are actually pretty damn fun.
We held the main gate valiantly!
Playing through every major battle from the end of the Two Towers all the way to the opening of the Black Gate, which is pretty cool because it lets you choose which hero you want to play as at the very beginning of this epic battle, which is pretty rad. But as I said before, the single player campaigns do an excellent job at adding scale to these epic battles versus what we see in instant action. Stomping around as an Ent in Isengard is always going to be a blast to play through, and so is playing as a Mumakil in the Battle of Pelennor Fields. You can't really go wrong. But it's only when you beat the good campaign that you unlock the evil campaign, which is honestly the best part. It is pretty rad because it tells a unique story of what if Frodo got dropkicked by a Nazgul at Mount Doom and then Sauron started laying waste to the rest of Middle-earth. Re-sieging Minas Tirith, but this time actually winning, or even going to the Shire and burning it all down. It's great fun. Not to mention having new epic battles to fight in areas that didn't have them in the good campaign. But listen, I know at the end of the day, the Lord of the Rings Conquest isn't a perfect game, but ultimately I did learn to appreciate the game for what it is. You'll be too busy having fun stealth assassinating your friends in multiplayer and realizing that even though there wasn't just a dozen orc mages attacking Minas Tirith, doesn't mean it can't be fun. And even though I still want a better version of this game that's tweaked like I mentioned in this video, doesn't mean you won't have a blast playing Lord of the Rings Conquest if you pick it up today. Well guys, you made it to the end. Thank you for watching this review of the Lord of the Rings Conquest, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it for you guys. But at the end of the day, guys, I love this game. I know it's got issues, as I mentioned in the video, but I just have so much nostalgia for this game. I just remember endlessly replaying the demo, waiting for my full copy of the game to come in the mail. When I finally got my hands on the copy, I just played it endlessly for a few weeks, and it was so much fun returning to this game for this video. And what I really learned is that there's always going to be more room for action-based Lord of the Rings games. And, you know, it's kind of a shame that we don't have more games like this that are better and, you know, even bigger in scope than what we saw back in 2009. And it's not just action games, but strategy games as well. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, so either way, this video was even more fun to make. But guys, that's all I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to drop a like on the video because it helps the little video reach new fans, and as I always say, that's always a good thing. I also make new videos like the one you're watching right now every single week, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future content, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.